Hello, John here, and you are watching Germany Music and More. So, today's video, I was going to do another song, but unfortunately, I woke up with a cold this morning, so that won't be happening. So, instead, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts around Reed. And just to let you guys know, this is a very impromptu video idea. I kind of made it up this morning. And yeah, so what I mean about Reed is, well, you know how there's always this talk of climate change and all that. Well, I'm going to be talking about greed in terms of, well, basically around climate change, because in case you haven't already heard this before, basically, I believe if we don't do something and start acting within the next 12 years, we could do irreversible damage to this planet and get there big companies out there who are so greedy that they rather think, like, I was talking, me and a group of friends last night when talking a bit about this, how there's companies out there, like, they probably know how to make engines for cars that'll last forever, and like phones that'll never break and stuff, but they don't make it because they're too greedy and they know that they won't make money out of that, because once you have this one item, you won't need to ever buy another one, and that's why it's made breakable. In terms of climate change, and that when they're being greedy and they're by not making something that's not gonna break down and you're not gonna have to throw out, then they're having to use more resources to keep producing new stuff, and resources come back to climate change because it damages the environment through mining of materials like metals and oil and all that sort of thing. And then, yeah, and then people within those big companies, their only thoughts are for the money that can be made, rather than thinking about how much damage they're doing to this planet. And that's why I'm sort of wanting to talk about this, because we need to stop being greedy and stop using limited resources like all your fossil fuels and metals and all that. Then we're taking more metal and oil and fossil fuels out of the ground than the earth can regenerate, and that's why it's a limited resource. And instead of using those limited resources wisely. There are companies out there that they'd rather just continue mining for these resources, hoping that they won't run out, and then if they run out in a particular place, they just go and just clear land and start mining in another place. And I think that's pretty sad. Like, you always hear how America's gone these junkyards where they've left their planes and trains and old vehicles. And it's pretty sad, really, because if you think about it, that's so much resources that could be recycled and turned into other products, but they're so greedy and they just want to keep getting new resources when there's all this resources that are sitting available to them that they could be using, and that would do less damage to the environment. Because, like, yeah, it just kind of annoys me how much damage we're doing to this planet through taking up resources and burning fossil fuels and taking down trees. Because, like, we should be planting more trees rather than taking them down, because trees are what absorb all the CO2 that we're producing, and then when we're chopping them down, we're releasing all that CO2 back into the atmosphere. And I don't know if you know this, but I learned from some of my courses I've been doing that in nature, in terms of the carbon, the natural cycle, carbon cycle, 80% of the carbon would be in the ground and 20% would be in the atmosphere. But us humans have been wrecking that carbon cycle by taking the carbon that's in the ground, the coal, the oil, and then sending it back and sending it up into the atmosphere, which is changing the balance between the carbon that's stored in the ground and the carbon that's in the atmosphere. And that's why we're seeing changes in the climate, because of the effects of changing the carbon cycle balance and then putting more in, which is absorbing the sun's heat rather than reflecting it back in space. And yeah, and getting back to grid, we need to stop being greedy. Big companies need to stop being greedy if we're going to save this planet, really, because if we start looking at the resources we already have gained, we could probably do so much. Like, there's already so much plastic that's out there in the world that we don't even think about, and we could recycle that plastic and turn it into new plastic that could then be used. And then, like, instead of making single-use plastic, we could take all the single-use plastic stuff, and maybe there might be a way to take that, melt it down, and turn it into something that'll last longer, like plastic containers and stuff that can be used more than once, and like bottles and stuff. And then in terms of like metals to make metal and stuff like cars and phones and all that, if we look at the, like, especially, I'm not like trying to be rude and diss America or anything, but like, if America stopped and looked at all these trains and planes and cars that have been left and abandoned, if they took those and instead of leaving them to rust, they stripped all the metal and everything down, melted it, and then they could use it to make other new cars and vehicles that require metal. Instead of wasting that precious resource that's in there, abandoned, slowly rusting, they could be using that and turning that into something new that can be used. And yeah, it's just really saddening how greedy the world's gone. I heard, can't remember how I heard it, but they saying that we actually have enough, we can produce enough food to feed 10 billion people. So then how is it that in a world of 7 billion, or give or take, that there's still people starving? Because there's people in countries out there that are so greedy, and they, like, we produce this food for us and we need this amount of food, when in reality they don't, because, well, they're stuffing themselves fat with food. Then other poorer countries that can barely make enough food for them to survive, and thus, and there's people starving from hunger because they just don't have the resources to be able to keep growing food to keep them alive. So if people stop being greedy, we could solve world hunger by giving the excess food to these countries that have no food. It is pretty saddening to just see the awful power balance where you have these big companies that are so greedy and they have so much money that they could be investing to help countries that are poor, yet they're too greedy to even notice them. And then on the other hand, you have the countries who are poor and desperate need. And then obviously there are countries that meet in the middle where they're not necessarily the most richest country, yet they do so much to help those little poor countries that have no money to help their own people. But I mean, it also comes down to some of those countries have greedy governments who take all the money and then they don't invest any back into the people who are in desperate need of help. And yeah, I'm not sure if I can really say too much more, and I don't want to do another extremely long video, so yeah, I hope you got inspired by this video, and yeah, I hope that inspires you to go out into the world and make a difference. And if you see someone who's in desperate need of help, instead of being, and you have the resources to help them, instead of being greedy and keeping those resources to yourself, why don't you be that person who actually goes and helps those that need the help? Anyway, that's enough from me, I think. Be sure to leave comments on what you think about this topic and give me your thoughts around Reed and your opinions on what I've said. Hope you've gotten inspired. Hope you enjoyed this video. Like always, please subscribe, like my videos, view my channel, and share with your family and friends. And yeah, I will see you next video.